Okay.
Visit. Yeah.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Laura Cazadas, and I'm a student of Khen Rinpoche's and the director of his nonprofit foundation for a school in Ladakh, India that he started called Siddhartha School. And we just want to thank Tibet House, Gandon Thurman and Bob Thurman and everybody at Tibet House for hosting this evening and providing the opportunity for Khen Rinpoche to speak. And I want to thank Joshua Cutler, who graciously stepped in to translate. We're very fortunate to have him tonight as the director of the Tibetan Buddhist Learning Center in Washington, New Jersey. It is the first Tibetan Buddhist Learning Center in the United States, started by the most venerable Geshe Wangyal in the late 1950s, and it is just a real treat to have him being able to translate. Khen Rinpoche is the abbot of the Tashi Lumpo Monastery in Balakupe, South India. That is where the monastery is in exile. Obviously, the original monastery in Shigatse is where he had began to get his training before the crackdown in 1959. He retreated. As a Ladakhi, he was able to go into exile more easily. The Chinese soldiers actually asked him if he wanted to stay or go. They asked all the Ladakhi monks if they wanted to stay in Tibet or go, and he said that he did want to go back. And he returned to Ladakh and tried to continue his studies. He's the first Lama in India to get both the Geshe degree and the Kachin degree, two different types of what we would call doctorates, but those doctorates take 30 years to do, so they may not be quite as comparable as we think. And I have to confess, it's a bit of a treat tonight because we also have Sewam Chiskit, who's one of Khen Rinpoche's students from Siddhartha School. She finished her high school in the United States and is now at Smith College, where Khen Rinpoche has been teaching since the late 1980s, on and off. So it's exciting to have the full circle of student and teacher here tonight. And I also have to confess that I had prompted Rinpoche to give this talk tonight for my own personal reasons. I'm very interested in how we can utilize the teachings right now for what has been a pretty difficult time. I think if anybody was at the Tibet House 30th anniversary at Carnegie last night, Bob talked about, you know, we have the year of the Firebird, and we need to rise out of the ashes of the past year and really apply our practice to the most positive benefit for our country. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rinpoche to speak about the 8 verses, which he suggested would be most critical to watching our minds to accomplish just that and transform difficult circumstances. So thank you.
I don't like the shoes. Yeah, that. Diriyangar di mi sarpadam nimba mambuji yanker turne gabu jongsons and Rangala Tragedy mi sarba nimba mambuji na mo sarba mambuji to no nimba mambuji to konga turne ya gabu jongsons.
I see in the audience people who are old friends and new friends. I'm very happy to see you all, and greetings to you.
During the che kazata di share the garden, you say long the tongue baggy, because the Lobzang Tsigam Kolashar.
So what is the topic or Dharma topic of today? It will be the composition of the Venerable Langri Tangpa called the 8 Verses on Mind Training.
That Dingan, I think because that ding sound the Karzavada, Zambuling de Nana, Zambuling de Nanglami, Daminda, Mirik Daminda Yore, Shuluk Daminda Yore, so ya, Yamlin Daminda Cheki Yore, that then on the bring the Nangbagi, Nangbaya teacher, Nangpekula the Shakes, Chulu, Zambuling de Chulu Daminda Yore. Then the Tomba Daminda Yore, Chulu so Debana Duyala, so Tomba Yore, Lamre Yore, Peggy Tosare Yore, that in the Chigia, Nangbaji, the town Yores.
In this world, I guess we say, on planet Earth, we could say, there are many different kinds of people and many different kinds of religions. And each of them have their own teacher, their own path. So among those, today we're going to be talking about the Buddhist path.
So Tombagena, so ya Banangi Koranzo Tigorada, so the Nargia Karizagata, Tonya Dang, Ichi Dang, and then Jeba Yopamojara, the Sosogi, Chulu Daminda Yores. In a Chulu Daminda Gangage, the Rosel Lamga Tigres. Topcha Karizagana, I Gangage ya Shikia, Devajandavo ya the Ladang Mi, Topcha, the Nimamuchi, the Yores. At the Toyaga Lamatangan Radio Figura, or Candice Top Gare, and the Lamtangande, and the Nangbichonia, to my Shagatuvaries.
As I was saying, that each of them have their own individual teacher, each of the different religious systems, and so then they have their own different, ways of describing how to attain their goal. But the goal tends to be the same in the way that it's teaching, instructing others to be more virtuous, better people, and so then our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha then instructed his followers in that way.
The milling the Chunjung Jores, Chambo Joria, the milling the Chambo Jores, the milling long up to the milling the Chunjung Chambo Des, Ding San, Sanjiki, the Kazu Dilla, the milling the Chunjung Chayores. I Chunju Chadu Samba, Anzo Ganga, Naman, Anzo Mojisha to give pass the debate to give me, pass the drop to give me. That things on Sunday, the Trujella, although we are dumbling the Chunichi, also Nangmin of the Chayores. Chinzanchi Minaji.
Maybe some 50 years ago, our world, the planet Earth seemed like a very big place. But in those 50 years, it's become much smaller. That now we have all the, favorable conditions for traveling and communicating with each other, and so the world has become smaller.
다 남물린데 순장 난도 강가에 낭미 첨부 지차야. 다 낭장미.
So as a result, then we have all become like one big family.
다 낭미 첨부 지어라. 다 낭미 상가 간도 갈쳐 가서 다디 농바디 강랑 간도 강가야 그게 낭미 것도 tumbu진 대선에 내가 낭진 간도 강가야 다 파은수야 예보 셈당 예보 사주야 가자다 마다마 사바 당이 먼저 강가래야 직발 따당제 강가에서 낭민은 인전에 사네 내가 그때 차지는데 뒤져가래서다 전주 저래서
So as a result, we have to think about how it is when we're staying in a family. Just the analogy is really it's being in a family where we learn to get along with each other, and so in the same way, then now we have to know how to. All the peoples of the world have to know how to get along.
다 낭미대야 야보지야라 강가래 수수수는 자와이나 바바이나 아마이나 부고이나 강가 세스미야래 세스미디나 낭미대야 낭대야 yarge yapotugiare sesemena nangde marge tugiare yage tumare so dangandu di zambulingi mi chi chayo zambulingi nangmi chi chayo dangandu zambuling de gangla jamba dang sewa dang ningje torneya kandisi de tugide tende ta chi ta ya 내가 처지 되가 저 대체하라 되네 좀 소소게 라마저를 스타인이야레스
In a family, then, the way a family stays together well is that each member of the family, the parents, the mother, the father, each member has a loving and caring attitude for each other, what do you say, the other members. So it is up to us now then to forge that kind of a relationship where we have love, compassion, and care for one another. And in that way, our family will be going in a successful, what do you say, and we will have a good family, a successful family.
Very, yeah. Then 다디 람든 지간데 남도 남바네 상기 좀 된다 상기 시작했다 말이야. 아 그걸 누기 때서 야식이 이제.
So the one who showed the path in our religion is Shakyamuni Buddha. So I will say something about Shakyamuni Buddha.
너 니동 쪽갱은 상기 좀 된다. 전문인들가 배워야 돼. 내가 거기 람 거기 네 가래 권한이야. 내가 권한 뒤지다. 상기 좀 된다. 당보 그저 가랑 안전năng 진제. 안전을 더야. 그 당보야 뒤지다. 냐라니야 되는 야 샘케니야 상게 버려야지. 다 상게 가서 권한이 람지 가리고 그 내가 전 리어 당보초 사버들 가자 디바장 대전이야 디 람지 터비어라 내 람댕은 줄래야 권한 땅이야래서 내가 가르쳐는데 저기 보면 게디지도 송야래서
We can think of Shakyamuni Buddha as being originally like ourselves, an ordinary person like ourselves, and then over a long period of many lifetimes, then he came to generate what we call the altruistic spirit of enlightenment, the altruistic aspiration to highest enlightenment for the sake of all beings. And then, in keeping with that motivation, he attained highest enlightenment and then became a teacher of the path that he himself had traveled.
제 로동 망보지라 거야 상계네 거라 랑가 간디지 라요르나 만조 강가 미인로 둔로 인로 냐와빈 간디 선자 간디 지난 강가라야 권한은 진기라게 톱자 상기 주사지어라 상기 잠닝제 야 율라시 투야당 상계 투야게 되는 건들 사분 남는 사분 잡으지기 와래서 네 여보도 건 캠바래서 내가 가르쳐서 디어로 당데 선디어로 전다 강가게 다 제바부지어로 남부 상계 좀 된다게 제바보데 로가였다 레당 레레된 종알서로 전다도 제바부지기어로 다 되는 보고 내 버지 제바보데 소소나 나로를 요래서 대거 캠이어서 디나
so then the Buddha had this understanding that all of us, whether animal or human or deity, all of us have this seed or potential for becoming enlightened, and therefore, then once this potential then usually we think of the creator of our world as being outside of ourselves, but the Buddha had this idea that then or came to understand that the creator was within ourselves, our own, what we call karmic action. Karma, then, is the creator of the world.
얘는 거기 상에 좀 되는데 상견이야 저도 덴지 저기 콜로 거라나 된 발바 생님의 총걸로서 총걸 림바스는 거라나 그래서 람데가 간지도
콜로
숨 거네 근데 람데 간데서 람데 딘딘딘 아제 람딘데 딘데 야야야 레벨에서 저기 콜로 당고 림바스는 거라나 그래서
then so the Buddha understood that this potential that we have for attaining enlightenment, and in order to awaken that potential, then he started out, he set out a course of teaching in three different courses of teaching to that in a graduated way for a person to reach to enlightenment.
The
first one was then the Four Noble Truths that he set forth in Varanasi or Benares.
동바 당부 동나 덴바다 군준 대만이기 코라를 콜드데 야탄겨라 코라를 간데스 캠겨랑도 간데스 거기야르네 동나 덴바 군준 덴바야 레당 영문을 된 두디야 그 거기데 된 덴바니바데 람덴당 고든 얘기 코라네 타네야 상기 살라 간데드데 도당 땡겨라
What is it that he set forth in these four truths, known as the Four Noble Truths? Then in the first two, he showed how it is that we, cycle, maybe we could say, or wander in cyclic existence. So what the first being the truth of suffering, and then there's the truth of the origins of suffering. The truth of the origins of suffering revealed then the causes of our wandering in samsara and undergoing suffering, and those causes are karma and the afflictions. We call them the afflictions, the emotional, thoughts, what do you say? Destructive emotions and thoughts. And then the next two truths set out the path and the path to the cessation of suffering, and then the cessation of suffering.
No.
So the first are how we get involved in samsara, and the second two are how we get out of samsara.
Tantan door dune, no. That the Mongolian the young to be Langtang teacher. Door dune has a sem diora, sem modul was your. Sem modul and Dulia Tabsis Gang Jisung Yares. In you check you get digital yard. Yeah, check you got the same modul, Sun Gombo Jora, Sun Gombo the Dulbo, Cheag, Tabjilla, the Chetusung Yares.
We don't have to go into much detail on this. In brief, we can understand what the point that the Buddha was trying to make, and that is that our minds are undisciplined, one way we can say it, or sometimes people translate it as untamed. And so then Buddha's teachings then lay out the way to discipline our mind.
Ade jore sem modur jore sem de dang manzoge manzog kaza danda kora thoma mebana manzo sem ge wong de ge yare de sem ge wong de chan sozo rama yo ma de sem de yang nyomong ge wong de chin yare de nyomong ge de jar ta so de nyomong na ne thar tu na da goje dang ma sona leader jabode Dagzin is Dagzin. Tome Maripa. Tome Maripa get the Chigalta. Korwa Kolchukan, Da, Minda Jan, Anjung Mandi Jagante, Sud, isn't it? Down Tome Maripa there is. That they may be and they check if we get his Jiton Somares.
It's said that the Buddha taught 84,000 different kinds of teachings. And these were for what we're saying is bringing, disciplining the mind. And if we consider how have we been since beginningless time, then we've always been under the control of our mind. And we have no independence from that. We've been under the control of our mind, and our mind has been under the control of the destructive emotions and thoughts. So it's really these destructive emotions and thoughts that are what we have to address. And amongst, at the base of these then is what we call initial ignorance or initial unawareness. And so then we can think of the 84,000 different kinds of teachings as addressing that in particular. So this ignorance, or otherwise known as self-grasping, or we'll call it self-grasping, or the misapprehension of a self. The way to overcome that is through both wisdom and compassionate method or compassionate technique.
jam ninji janjugi sem dia to share with chone ya de stong ni dang de dam to share de mangu sha yong de odu de ya shan a thonda don dur nganzo ganga ya tabje zoom du de we gon ya sangi sal ro ge de ya sung ge
So we can think of the Buddha as teaching two different avenues to enlightenment. And on the one side, he's teaching compassion and love, compassion, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment. And that's compassionate method. On the other side, he's teaching wisdom and the profound wisdom of, that cognizes emptiness. Now, emptiness and dependent arising. So these then are taught in that way, but we are to bring them together in a unification. And so it's through the unification of method and wisdom then that we proceed to highest enlightenment.
Jizun jamba gombona papa tome gine ya tabge chade ya salpo chen gyashin gyaba chen tan ya leza gombon jizun jambe ana gombon lu gine ya sharb ge chade ya gyashin gyaba chen tu de ya ni din ya sha ya leza yang zo hobo ge ya leza.
So then the Buddha had his primary disciples that he imparted these two paths or avenues to enlightenment. And on the compassionate technique side, then he taught Maitreya, his Bodhisattva disciple Maitreya, and Maitreya then passed those teachings on to Asanga, the great Indian, Arya Asanga. And then on the profound wisdom side, then he taught his Bodhisattva disciple Manjushri, and then Manjushri imparted those teachings to Arya Nagarjuna.
And then later, at the end, the 11th century, you know, then the kaza yagare nalende kabachumbo di pera kaza chocha atisha na te pardu atisha da de lam de ngi de loga nyamnen chigi horesa atisha pene ya de lam ngi de ya di kaza nyamdja zungdela kandi dogo de den di sambal de kaza dan di changjum lamdre jene dengi ka ya galwa me penyam de chache duk dia dra de tambare de nyam dia.
This began, Rinpoche said, 2,600 years ago, and when Buddha imparted first these teachings to his Bodhisattva disciples, and it descended through various disciple to teacher, the disciple becoming from teacher to disciple, and the disciple becoming teacher, and then further disciples. And so this lineage of these two, first the compassionate technique, and then the profound wisdom, these were, over the centuries, two separate lineages. And they stayed separately until the 11th century, when this great figure arose in India, known as Atisha. And Atisha was a great scholar and adept of Nalanda University, and monastic university in India. And in his person, these two lineages were combined.
Ate sem kezu de la dayang ni yore. Yunda manga dungi gona ya ske atidan dajan nyamji gona ya sem kezu ni yore.
And So at that point, then he composed a book known as the Bodhipratapadipa, which is the Chanchup Lamdran, the lamp for the stages of the path to enlightenment. And this book then talked about, indicated two different methods of attaining, what do you say, developing the altruistic spirit of enlightenment. One through the seven cause and effect personal instructions, and then the other one is usually translated as equalizing and exchanging, but the exchange of self and other.
Yeah, I think it's right. Then, because I did, then the same kids do the agenda, and body, Yundamanga, Gwingone, same kids do there, same kid, Chanchu, other Jade, Tigger, Gumbo, because Papa Tomine, Gidia, Tichigaro. Doesn't him going to kiss to them, Papa, the Gumbuludunia, Jenny, the Shanti Deva Party John, then they had Church Panada, the same kid need John.
These two methods originally were passed down through these two separate lineages that we were mentioning earlier. The method of the seven cause and effect personal instructions was through a sangha, and handed down through that, which is known as the lineage of abundant deeds, and then the vast deeds. Abundant, or maybe vast deeds is better, and then the other method of developing the altruistic spirit of enlightenment is the exchange of self and other, and that was handed down through Nagarjuna and his followers, and so you had these two kind of separated. Yeah.
They're separated, and then in Atisha,
And so then when Atisha received them both, they were joined together.
Indonesia penny, then I think the young
Nika sailing by
Nika, Panda Atisha, then so local Jigaro. I church Panda Atisha, and then you can zoom that Yam de Chiga, Michigi, Zinger,
So then they were joined together in the person of Atisha, his primary teacher being his known as Serlingpa.
Then they usually Kadamba Kadamba. Katisha Giba de la Kadamba, Kadam teacher. Kadam the Geshe Kazata, Kadam Geshe Romtombane Gidia, that took the Janatene, that young teacher. The Julaya, Kadam Yang, Kadam Jumba, Kadam Jumba, Kadam Damnapa, Mangapa, Kadam Kaza, Yanaji, Kadam Sumjon, yeah? Young local Sumjon, it's need in the Sumjon.
Then there was a whole tradition that was founded on Atisha's teachings in Tibet, and that was known as the Gadamba tradition. The Gadamba tradition then was actually the founder of that tradition. It was Atisha's Tibetan disciple, Drome Dumba. Then Drome Dumba, there were a number of different, three different parts to that lineage. There's the textual lineage, the personal instruction lineage, and Shungbawa,
Shungbawa,
and then Dhamma.
Mengapa, then can't see the Chicking.
Oh, Lamrimpa?
Lamrimpa.
And then the other one was the stages of the path.
Yeah. So then, Songkapa, now Songkapa, this India,
So then
16th century.
These three lineages of the Kadamba tradition were all received in the person of Je Tsongkhapa, the great Tibetan scholar and adept Je Tsongkhapa.
Okay, okay, Kadamba Geshe, Langli Tamba. Geshe Potowa, the Langli Tamba. Langli Tamba Ge, Taya, the Tandi Dijigar, Lobzang together, Lobzang together, Lobzang together, Gandhi, Dajang Yamjo going to send you to your Dajang Yamjo going to send you to their down. That comes at the only mix, mix that in the share of the Lobzang here. Thing it in down.
So then, under the Dromtumba's disciple was known as Potawa. We're talking Dromtumba was the founder of the Kadamba tradition. His disciple Potawa then had this disciple Langritamba, who was the person who composed these 8 verses on mind training. And this mind training has this distinguishing feature of presenting the exchange, the method of developing the altruistic spirit of enlightenment through the exchange of self and other, and then sort of, embellishing that with the practice of what people usually use the Tibetan nowadays, Tonglen, but Tonglen doesn't say anything, and so it's really giving and taking. So, and then because this was kind of a special way of doing it, then it became, that kind of approach became known as mind training, or Lobzang.
Lobzang Sigema, Lobzang Mangboya, and not Lobzang Sigema as a Diara, Shaloga Gayara. That day, he just Susan, he said Langli Tangbagi. He said Langli Tangbagi, Lobzang Sigema, this one. That day could drink as a dish.
So then, there are many different kinds of mind training texts and or different approaches to mind training. The one we're talking about tonight was that of Langri Tangpa, and he composed this text of where there's 8 verses. So we will talk about that now. The 8 verses of mind training by Langri Tangpa.
Shanti Devati son, Semshung Tuju Matopa, Tuju Mangpichi Chas, Kali Jojo, Semshung, Sem the Sunagi, and the Kala Kachachade, Young Kacha Mumpicha, the same decree, said Nyazan, this Tuju and Yakshu de Reze. Semshung Tuju Matopa,
And
Tuju Kacha Kawacha.
Oh,
Kawacha. Same Sunagi Kawacha, Yakshu de Rez, the Temambe Yang, Jignang, Mangpuchita, Kazadai, the Gombala, the Yapiki, Tapula, the Luki Kawacha, and the Tenebombiora. Then there's a Yakshu, the gun the same day Sunagi. Same is soon the Sunagi, Yakshu de Rez,
Kawaja.
Kawacha. Semshung Tuju Matopa, the Jung big Jiji Chaz.
Okay.
Same thing. That's something. On the same the country, and Langbuchi Nyumbagi Semnang. That the Koya to go here. That Koya Zangboji is over here. That Tela Chala and the Lojong, Lojong as a Lojong similar together. Go long and but the Mepazon Zangboza, the Jong together.
And so, Shantideva, Shantideva had this saying that the best way to maintain your mind is with joy. If we have to think of the mind as like a, what do you say, a mad elephant, and so we're trying to tame the mind. So that Shantideva is saying that we can think of, maybe comes to mind when we think of mind training as you know, some kind of, what do you say, ascetic or difficult practice. That's not what Shantideva is indicating. He says the best method is that of, I think, joyfulness, maybe. Gawajeba.
Gawajeba, joyful money. Gachajio, Gawajio, Kalamaza, the Lula Metemba, Dennis, Zutumadenio, the Gachas.
Oh, gotcha.
Kajagan, the Lapa Kaza, Zubo, Kabia, Nantaji, Kajajio, Dennis again, and the Kajajala, Samson of the Kajadia.
Kalamaza. I got the wrong word, sorry. We'll have to retrace that translation. And it was, when you're, what do you say, going under, going under,
yeah, trouble there, right? At the end, on the same good Dulmadino, trouble them at the coming door. Yeah, the same good they are, the same they are, June they are there. To June, you also did is it? To Kajana, Kajaja, they also did is.
If you're going to bring some, what is the word, some ascetic, usually there's the practice of asceticism where people undergo hardship, physical hardship. And if you're going to tame the mind, then the mind has to be brought under some kind of, what do you say, gotcha means like, what do you say, some kind of strenuous or difficult.
Make effort to.
Effort, yes. Yeah, you have to strain and make effort to do something.
Stop eating, not talking, not meeting, not then sometimes making.
Yeah, there's many different kinds of ascetic practices where people are not speaking and staying in isolation and all this, but the most effective way is to bring some kind of strain or what do you say? It's not working right in English, but some kind of hardship, undertake some mental hardship, I think we have to say.
Physical hardship.
And mental.
Mental hardship is the best, no?
Yeah, that's physical, the best. Some mental hardship.
I don't know that I'm the lava in my, you know, the top of ceremony, and they did a long sick gay, to take care of it. To take care of it, to don't take it, tap the color, to took the aura, took a tap, chadia, Kevachin Shaggy. I took the Dumba digi, did. 탑기 차 모셔요. 네, 돌드니야 지시기야. 얘는 진짜 개바되기 근데 야 샤르기 차드야. 숨겨 있잖아. 탑주 좀링이라 되네야. 람차상지 되어야지 진짜 개는 공기도 성이야. 그래서
So Langri Tamba then presented these 8 verses, and the first 6 verses are talking about compassionate method. Then the 7th verse is a summation of those first 6 verses. And the final verse then is talking about profound wisdom. So these 8 verses then present the path to enlightenment, both compassionate method or technique and wisdom. The Dr. Dr. Jigirwa. So then,
maybe you can read the.
Yeah, maybe I'll read this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first verse, then, I'm using a translation in this book called by His Holiness the Dalai Lama called the Transforming the Mind, Teachings on Generating Compassion, and there's a translation here by Geshe Jimba, and he or Thupten Jimba, he prefers to be known as. And so here, the first verse, Rinpoche just read it in Tibetan. In English, it comes like this: with a determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings, which surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem, may I hold them dear at all times.
미전다 카리나 히 하마고 나랑 나도 나랑 심제 탐자라 이진기 누불에 여러 심제 탐자라 이진기 누불라스 그냥 라페 라바지야 야 삼로 땅내야 지기 여세 돈다 뭐 간다 이진 누불라 그냥 체 라바 돈 초도 주야 자 심장을 때나 돈 초도 주바 control girbadi druptugi doze de duage but taninge sanjang jin chegi insa
Jin chegi
jin chala lagin na je buchesi
so then it starts out with the saying, well, in the English it says, may I hold them dear at all times at the end. That's not, in the Tibetan anyway, it explains, it talks about this, who the I is. The I in this case is Geshe Langri Tangpa. And so Langri Tangpa is then saying that for the sake of all living beings and for the benefit of all living beings, or sentient beings, then what is the highest? The highest aim then is the determination to achieve the highest aim for all sentient beings, and so then. The Langri Tangpa is saying that he always then holds all living beings dear with this thought, and with this thought of achieving the highest aim for the benefit of all living beings, and this thought then surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem.
Senjan tena ton chodu girba sangi ko komang diptu gitu se tege chenne senjan ya pe ijingi nubula san la pare se ijingi nubula tena chedi kan kare guigin ko yong tu gyar ma to chi chechima dang tabja tadu ya tarba dang tamje kembe lam ya top tu gyar ma re se senjan la tena chedi kan la to da kan ga du yong yare chechima ya ondo lami ko la tena top gyare tarbe lam la ko ko tem du gyar tam제 캠벨라는 거 저도 길어 tam제 캠벨 semjan tena dugido ze te sansa semjan de jiragiya is stewa don chibuchigi yozena sigeze
and here it says surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem. The wish-fulfilling gem then has no ability to it's like the Aladdin's lamp. It has only abilities to fulfill wishes in this life, material wishes, but then this determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings, that it has the ability to reach the goal to fulfill for us the highest wishes that we have for achieving a fortunate rebirth in our future lives, and then liberation, and finally the final goal of omniscience for this, and all of this for the sake of others.
Enti dewa tisungare se. Semjen dan sanging yorwa. Semjen dan sanging yola. Sanging la chitong chimbuchiki do se. Semjen la chikimin do se. Karire se. Tobe ade sanging dan semjen yikala tena ya sanging gobandi semjen la sena tokiya de. Semjen la sanging dan jimin se karim bazi tiya se.
So Shantideva then posed a question of for reaching to highest enlightenment, and there are two things that make that possible: the Buddha and sentient beings or living beings. Then why is it then that we respect and worship the Buddha and not living beings?
No, so semjen la tena ta nganzo karin ganga semjen kerin wa chosa tuna sangye tabala ya chosa gre chosa sa semjen la tena sa go yare sen endeni dige kaza sangye ge ya sangye dube tamba go ngare ninje go ngare ninje ke sa de semjen la tena nyen go ke go yare tamba go san de dungal ge na semjen de ya kaza ninje ke sa jo dungal ge na semjen la tena ko ya ninje de ke tu gi do de dewa na dan do semjen de ne chamba jong gi do ate ganga semjen la ten ki gi do ma to sangye la ten ti mi do sa jo to sangye ka semjen la chod jo jedra ge ya chod je ba je ya ta khare re sen ko la ten na de chimba kaza zo ba gom tu ya da ta pe ge chamba da ninje da sa wa sangye ta tu sangye gi sa par do semjen la ten ro tu gi ya re te so da semjen de ya semjen de jedra ge ya ti je sa nganzo ine da nyen parma sun je jaro da te ji ge da semjen ganga da nyen parma ganga ge nganzo le da minda tabje sum ge gone ya ro ba ji ge re 가셔게 년전이야 지기야 yargetang yo 가셔게 다전에 양은 좀 미시바 간가 매봐서다 답지진이야 돼 상자 발마 다가서 되는야 단당한 저야 yar게 요는 고속으로 받지야 돼 그러나 다디라 다되게 야 당고마되게 다치기야 말이야 다되게 결한디 둥한데 마도나 결한디 맞잖아 둥대가는 지 맞죠 yargetang 거래 배차를 말했어 발마대한 다가서 창전돼 맞도 능력을 저와래 다 년대강 나나 제자가 작전 지기요 말이지 작전은 가장 난진지 자단 작전 매바 당인 발마강가 다탄 직바 베스 서와전이야 이진기 누불라 라고지자 제자가 단담 데이터부터 제자가 되어 듣기야 저거서 서와서 그래서
So living beings then if we're going to attain enlightenment, it's through our relationship to living beings. And for instance, it's through, in order to become enlightened, we have to amass the what's known as the accumulation of merit. Accumulation of merit can only be done in relationship to others, and how. And it's done through, we accumulate merit through both, through being compassionate to sentient beings, being patient with sentient beings, being loving to sentient beings, and then in that way, for instance, all our practices then are in relationship to living beings. So living beings become more important in our achieving Buddhahood, and not only to those close to us. And normally we would have these generate patience with those who we feel close to, our friends, and then we would we'd have the opposite of these feelings of love and compassion towards those who are our enemies, and or who, if we don't think of it, another way of thinking of enemies is people who we have difficulty with, and then there's the kind of those who we have kind of neutral feelings towards, and then we sort of just neglect them. But in the practice in these practices of developing an attitude that is more precious than a wish-fulfilling gem, then we have an equal attitude towards all these three different divisions that we make out of sentient beings, so that we have we reduce our what do you say, enmity towards those who we have a difficult time with, and we reduce our favoritism, and attachment to those who we feel close to, and then we care for those who we have neutral feelings towards, and so we bring all beings, and so then it's with this attitude of emphasizing all living beings equally, then with an attitude of impartiality, then that we proceed towards generating this special, what's called a determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that is why then it's regarded as surpassing a wish-fulfilling gem. So essentially then what's being said in this first verse is that the way we're going to attain enlightenment is through other living beings. So then we have to hold these other living beings as very dear at all times.
khazam khani shabasam mayin ba ning thapane kozole jetagi gusbaji yare chod jejin chod jebar ding yare khani labasam mayin sem ding ya semjande jetagi ya di reze be kazaje kazam ning de ya jetagi khazam mande kole jetagi kole gusbaji wale 먼저 그렇게 말아. 나 연단 좀 뭐야. 나 지금 나 시간 나 지금 되죠. 나르겔 내버서. 단다디 나르겔기 가자. 나르겔기 공부를 연단기 춤이 찾은 거로. 예, 나지는 나르겔 연단기 기경. 자단 나르겔 내버서 거기 어리. 자선 나르 탕바드네 미스는 취지 늘 가바지라네. 야가 사자 간디지라 이나요. 고슬에 권한조야 봐. 이제 그스바던 티워치 나랑 만사선에 야로로진 야 디치기요데. 대 선전 둑들 타기요데. 선전 수는서 만조이네. 소소 응어시 받는데 야까. 소소 응어면은 다가샤. 소소 다다버지나 베 미로라 민간다 다 지치기로. 된데메 바강갈에 야베 그런 염주 추면 추당마서는 추 오네 가봐. 오네 드건 때나진는 거 둑대야 밀 제바지기요서.
This next verse, then, is whenever I interact with someone, may I view myself as the lowest among all, and from the very depths of my heart, respectfully hold others as superior. Here, the attitude that Langri Tangpa is expressing, that he, whenever he meets with anyone, then he holds himself with humility. What is being advised here, or what is being advised against, is this attitude of pride. Pride is where there's a saying that on the round rock of pride, water can never stay. So then, instead, you have this, the analogy is this attitude of humility, where water is always, whatever, it seeks the lowest place, right? So then, and then with that attitude of humility, then from the very depths of my heart, it means that not just in words, I respectfully hold others as being superior to me. And the emphasis here is on respect. Usually we're going to have a certain, partiality, respecting those who we consider as close to us, and sort of, not really caring about those who are neutral, and then we have a lot of enmity for those who we have difficulty with. Then, so then here, Langri Tangpa is saying we have to, that he holds all of these equally with this respectful attitude and humility.
Okay. That tanda di gan khajol margyal dia. Margyal me ba kengung jawale. Kengbagong. Margyal me da den juwa. Tungun jior ku tanda. So ngandi dibati yamara jagana deba ine. Anzo lama da inde giganda inde su papa ama inde misugo ya tusona tu dia kangbale dugiyale. Ta jior ku ne sewan semje sunen da nyen ba ma sunan sojina. So the jizu lama yo de nangjin ne kura chawale. Sitam chawale.
Kuwa.
Oh,
Kuwa, David.
Kuwa, Skurwa,
we don't have this kind of custom in this culture, but in India, there's a custom of where when you meet with a highly respected person like your parents, and a child would then touch their feet and then touch them the hand to the crown of their head. And also with the guru, you have that same, your respected teacher, you do the same thing. And so it's really, so what's being pointed out in this verse is not to have an attitude of pride towards others, but to have this respectful attitude towards others. It's sort of so then it's talking about taking any living being and holding them on the crown of your head, and it's not talking about doing it physically, but this is a mental attitude that we hold every living being with respect in that way. From the very depths of our heart, very sincerely, not just this. From the depths of my heart is a way of saying sincerely.
단바든 시진여로 단바든 시진기 소소 semla takja chawareze ni samle karitangde yaboduga dugoda ko takja chawareze ta takja chidu sambaya seminala nyumonke nyumoyala dese jedang lo sobaten diskenya milaya dasaya je michi sodu dadobisna kolaya jedang kigero o deyang 년다버지는 잡아기 그러와 다 된데 도움도 야 단바든 시진이 야고 다자 저거래서 다자 시도 삼바 녀모께 두나 랑 가자데 디초라 랑 마루마 책이야래 양양 마루마 책이야래 대차자 잔담 동나 동바셔 그때 냄사께네 구독대 마작 받제 베 동두네 동는제네 배 추득대 무료네 문화는 막 토기 제가 주어는 야 포 바르 주기야 말이야. 동나는 배 갑두글 갑지자고 그래서. 갑두글 그래서. 동나도는 눈는 거. 너 거야 야 파리 용서 한번지 되는데. 너도 해줘 그래서.
So then the next verse, we've said enough about verse 2. Verse 3 is, in all my deeds may I probe into my mind, and as soon as mental and emotional afflictions arise, as they endanger myself and others, may I strongly confront them and avert them. Here, it's saying, Langri Tangpa is saying that he's aspiring here that in all my deeds, that means whether he's lying down, whether he's standing up, or whether he's walking, at all times, then he's always looking inward and with both mindfulness and introspection, constant mindfulness and introspection into he's watching his mind, and then he's looking for whether a destructive thought or emotion it's getting ready to arise, and then it's you saw Rinpoche using his his hand, that you're beating it down. It's really like if it comes up, you have to be very strong because you know that it's going to be it's going to endanger yourself, and it will endanger others too. So the minute you see the minute Langri Tangpa sees that arise, then he has to use a very strong method to confront these afflictive, destructive thoughts and emotions, and to beat them down, I guess is maybe confront them. Defeat them, okay, yeah. Don't let them take over.
Strongly, not if you're dog coming, no, Kyung, Namsan took the journey, Keys to Changura, Koyong Sumaya Gupaya,
Yeah, it's like if a fierce dog comes at you, you can't just sort of get all worried about it and anxious, and then the dog's going to, leap on you. They're very ferocious dogs in Tibet. Then, so that you have to, if you have a stick, then you can just whack him like that. And then the dog will run away.
The dog carry on that you move Doja Kyung, Timugi, Nyoputosa Giore, Doja Chawachi, Jedangi, Casa the Tam Digiga, Mazogero, and then you teach Kitty, Maples over here.
So what is
Tamba the Shijing here, Tambe Chagio, Shijingi Tapadani.
So then, who are the ferocious dogs here? We're talking about the afflictions. Primarily, that means hostility and attachment and ignorance. And so when you see those, then you have to use this strong stick. What is the stick? In this case, it's your mindfulness and introspection. That with mindfulness and introspection, then you can
introspection,
then it's like the dog won't jump on you. You keep him at bay. Really, it's just like you can with a stick you can keep them at bay.
Okay. Yeah. That done that door do another. You must get some. You must get your. You must get some. Yaman some how go in. How go in? Burjum Jawar, Burjum. Burdu Chigamari.
Burjum. Oh, yeah.
Don't let it pop up.
Yeah, don't let them pop up.
Oh, yeah. Jump.
So then, what we can summarize that we the point of this verse is that when these you're looking very carefully and not and taking great being very careful not to see if these are coming or not, and then if you see them sort of popping up like Rinpoche is saying, then you have to beat them down.
Okay.
So that's enough about that. Now we're going to the fourth one.
Rangjin Nampe Simjan Dang Dunga Trabu no Tongze Rinchen Terdan Tapajin Neparkawe Chijin Labs do Rangjin Nampe Simjan Dang Rangjin Nambazin Mi Peshikan Langbo Mebe Mi Dupta Niger zero. Nature ngamba bad
Rangshin
rangjing ngamba rangjing ngamba rangjing nambe semjan dang semjan yorwa semjan khabe karo ni mira ya tuto tang ya semjan la ya chigi sa tu che ya da ni da ta den yo re te ko rang jing ba wa den de sem jan dang ze dunga la shu ta bo den yang sem jan kha je den de jo sem jan kha je pe dunga ji na yo ro dunga na yo ro ta pe ru bo ge na sa no mo bo na yo re ze non be sem jan no tong du sam ba da den sem tong ge wa ji rang jing nam ba na jen ko di jin pe pe ni ta dong ko di me be sa jo de jo ze ge wa de ma che 맞아요. 다때 코 간디스 탑지 간디 저기도 돼 저래서. 아 가셔 그냥 빼 나는데 근데 나서 둘자도 여러 봐. 먼저 대칠 들기 말아 봐. 어다 텐드 통도 삼바지. 린진 때문에 동아 슈다 보구나 넌 베심전 남 통제 길룩바면에 가자다 이 로야 유마줌바제. 로 마줌바제 야 슈적모 림보체 때니 바나진. 아디데 베 시작이 되는아야 그 록바제 아데 베스테니 바나진 지게야 세미나라야 가서 쳐버려서. 그래. 가서 가와 살나.
So the next verse is when I see beings of unpleasant character, oppressed by strong negativity and suffering, may I hold them dear, for they are rare to find, as if I had discovered a jeweled treasure. Here, the unpleasant character really does mean that. It means somebody who just is a very nasty person, I think we have to translate it, and who is, maybe we would say kicks dogs, just a nasty to everyone, and then, but you can see that they have, but they're also physically. It's talking about people who have very difficult. They're oppressed by, for instance, some kind of illness, and then the illness makes it a very difficult illness that we normally would turn away from to see such a very difficult person, and both in talking about their character and how they appear physically to us, and so then what we're being asked to here to feel. I mean, what Lanri Tamba is saying, that he's aspiring to then see them in a way that have joy to see them, joyously see them, and to when he meets with them, instead of just turning away, but to joyously have this opportunity to interact with them.
아티지는 스스로 냠는지게네 랑게 가자 생기 동알당 디발서 스알레 랑게 대화당 긴요 강가 파 당한테 냠는지게로 아때 생기지게로 다 드린 거네랑 니미데 이게 나 원래 빼다 드린데 니 냠는 쳬버들 원래랑 또 모습으로 될 제가 뜻었다 왜 가보시라 좀 가보자 말다 콜레야 되죠 그 독자지가라 접바 거면 그때 그 남바요 그 쭈보시기로 쭈보시다는 텔레 접바 거면 거기 지당 판도 당기도 다 드린 그나 원래랑 이야데 돈은 레야데 렌마고 삼로마다 그야 저기 가보시라 때 드린 니민데 코니 페지라게 장집처 상계 교과방 타야게 되는 배 로버트는 초도 교받지래서. So they young didn't to have the human young didn't meet to have the bed jettaga kalaka police. And then the young gimmers the young not take to zero.
This is a practice for Langri Tangpa. He's somebody who can. For us, it's very difficult to imagine being able to do this, but you have this internal practice of taking on the giving and taking, as we mentioned this earlier, and where you're taking on others' suffering and giving them your happiness. And so then somebody like Langri Tamba is saying, oh, wow, when I meet with somebody in reality, that I could take on I can help them, relieve them of their suffering and share give them my happiness. Oh, this is great. I could do it right there in reality instead of in my, what do you say? I can bring it into reality, bring my own experience of giving and taking into reality with such a person. So they're very, so somebody like Langri Tamba, he's feeling, oh, this is a great opportunity.
That they do. That done that. The Rinpoche is telling a banana, because Ulpochi, me Ulpochi, call a Rinpoche 30,000 country Gazong, then Nanjin, Dante, Zobagoma, Midi, ranging up mid the chapter to Sona, I stayed in Tavanaji,
So it's really talking about the practice of patience or tolerance, and so then the person is saying, Langri Tamba is saying, oh, I have this. It's difficult. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to practice my tolerance, my patience, there's other forbearance and forgiveness. All of these come into this idea of sopa in Tibetan, and so we translate it as patience. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for me to practice patience, is what Langri Tamba is saying.
That then this is an individual. They hung about the design. Suggest you about the Sarah and the Roger. I hung about it.
So now we finished with verse 4. We're proceeding to verse 5.
Dagla Zengi Tadogi Zido She Jing Shigur Lasso Mirikpa Dagla Zengi Tadogi Shigur Lasso Mirikpa then guy Mirikpa I got do then Dagla Zengi Tadogi Shigur Lasso Mirikpa Gyonka Rangi Lemba Dang Gyalka Janla Bulwar Shaw the Dai. Yeah. Nabade Gaza, Dagla Jangi Tadogi, Langdi Tangban Daglas, Nalas Gara, Jan Mijandagi is a Tadogi Wangi, and that Shewa, Sheshetang, Changdu, and Tadogi Kunalande, Jan Mijada, Tadogi Kunalande. Tadogi Kunalande, called Tadogi Wanderson there, Kunamde, Sheshetan, Sheshetan the other. Doctor, Kumari Chabaling was there at the Sandru, could Kangatanga, Kaskan dear, they can do it. Andu, Deepa, then Diradan, Metatan, as well. Guraso, she Miripa. No, but then she mirum, then no, but then the subject chain, no, but subject in Nayan, Delaya, quite Galcate. Gong Sosaran, Gonka, then Gongdang, Pamkaze, Gong then Sosalaya, lose this guy, Paka, Tamja Rangile, Galka, Kedang, Kepsandang, Galka Gonga Jandala, yes, I.
So here we have in verse 5, when others out of jealousy treat me wrongly with abuse, slander, and scorn, may I take upon myself the defeat and offer to others the victory. Here, Langri Tamba is talking about others that are motivated by a very strong sense of jealousy. And then they treat you with abuse, saying, a lot of abusive words and slander, saying things that aren't true about you. And then scorn here almost means that they're really here physically beating you. So then, so instead of trying to defeat them, may I take the defeat upon myself and then let them have the victory.
No. Di sungja do danda ga panjin lozan chegi genzengi. Kamsum kigu mal chegi ne. Kamsum yorwa. Do kamsuka zume ga mi danda ga ganga ya be chigwasene. Na segwan chegi ne shejin sheje ta ya. 견주 현강 견상강 서된다. 제진 창조 딕싱 배 니다당 제전에 속주게 됐어. 세. 속전에요. 네. 미투잖아. 서 된다잖아요. 샘자는 맞추고지 걸링인지 검도까지.
So this reminds me of the verse from the first Panchen Lama, who said that if all the beings of the entire universe, really is talking the three realms of the universe, if they all came up to me and scolded me,
become
oh yeah, they rose up as my enemies, and then they beat me and abuse and beat me. And then also used weapons on me. Criticize me. Sorry. Yeah, no. May I just sort of go, oh, that's great, and not have any, and only have an attitude of compassion towards them.
They have one story there. One practitioner want to go particularly the Lungbaji, Lungba pe dukja. Then I call Zoba Gonga drinking jari. Zoba Gon Tokimari meets the dukja. The countries of application meter to a young Kabdung Dana. Meet is the pay, Yakwari, Kabdung Town, some of the Yeta Tang was on. Yeta Tansona. I meet is the pay, Yakwari, Ninja, Yeta Tanson, Yeta Dukta Tang was on. I Yeta Dukta Tanson, I meet is the pay, Yakwari, Yeta Dukta Tang was on. Dukta Tang Sunday. Say myself as Jira, what is that? Sasson, oh, me this a bit Jira, what it? Sabamato, because the Yala Tang, Yala Tang to Yamara, no one. Sabamato, Koya Nansong, I excuse to my song. Oh,
yeah, there's a story also that has a similar theme to it, that one person was going to help the people of a certain region, and the people there were really difficult people, extremely difficult. Yeah, he was going to practice, patience, and so he was going to this region where the people were particularly unruly and rough, and so he was. So his guru then said, "Well, what are you going to do when you get there and they're so difficult to you?" And he says, "Well, if they heap abuse upon me, then I'll say, oh, well, I will maintain my compassion and think, oh, well, they're not beating me. At least they're not beating me. And then if they should beat me, then I would say, oh, at least they're not, beating me terribly. And then if they should beat me terribly, I will still maintain my attitude of compassion towards them, and patience and compassion and think, well, at least they didn't kill me, and then if they should kill me, then I'll go, well, this isn't so bad. They can't really send me to hell by killing me. And so in that way, I will maintain my compassion towards them.
Quite. Nanson ko skul tuya ya mara. Set ngan sen na dige ngeta tang tuya de. Midu cha de ya nanson ko korang nyamnen cha san ko nanson da ya mara de wa jan da ya.
That's a
nanson ko tang ya ko wang de ya mara ba. Midu cha de san.
If somebody kills you, they have no ability to send you to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the duk the yajan that on that dorna gyalpam gyalka dam pamka stopa chigi yorwa.
Right.
So this number gyalka de janla pangarangi lense. Tergo that on that rangi pamka sulen yaga janla ta de. Tang den ngan chu de gimaro ya.
This is another one. This is another one that we can't do ourselves, but the idea here is that when anybody does these very difficult things to you, then you offer them up the victory and take the defeat yourself.
Yeah, this
But when we have to think that, am I unable to do this kind of thing? You have to think, no, I do have the capacity to do this. Yeah, you have to. It's like a toothless person who really likes meat and then is offered some meat. You can do something with the meat, without any teeth. And so it's the same idea. You can chew them with your gum. You chew it with your gum, so you have to have that kind of attitude.
Yeah, to do it.
Yeah, it's not that there's no way to do it at all. It's just that, it's a difficult practice for ourselves. Time's disappearing here rapidly, so we have to go to the next verse.
Next verse, and to Padera.
Six.
Shindu Mirik Chenayang, Shinyan Tamba Tower shows them. Kangla, Dagi Panda Bazi. Me Kanjila, Langju Tamba the year, Joachimuji, I meet the La Pando, then the Jizan, Juma Pando Jira, what you get and some day, right? Pando Jira, Pando Ganga Chene, Panda, Joachimuya, and ye Panda, Juma Panda, Pando Yapachigis, Tijiro. That day Pando has tapped the local Juma Pet. The captation Gabjoche, Dukja Jesona, that they pay Jedaki to Kolaya Dukja Majas, but they're giving in Nigeria and something.
So here, Langri Tamba says, when someone whom I have helped and in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me in extremely hurtful ways, may I regard him as my precious teacher. So here, Langri Tamba is talking about someone who he was able to help, and then he's thinking, oh, this person will, now that I've helped them, they'll be able to do this and that, and has great hopes for this person. Then they turn around and completely mistreat him, treat him very badly in extremely hurtful ways. And he says, may I take that person as my, and think of that person as my precious teacher. And so then what this means, what is the essential point of this verse? It means that when somebody does like that, you have to have compassion for them.
그냥 리겐 디지 송자다. 야 디어를 가자. 야사 용주 통에 문주 야사 통에 열어.
네.
야사 통에게 된디지 송다. 다기 부진 챔버스 캬네. 미테야 소세 뿌나지 저데야 세와단 제보지 강 열어. 강 열은 다데 강 반나지 다디게 다능진데. 다능진 타워 찐나양데. 그 뿌나지 강 바데 소세빈 데는 두자고 능진 추사 다나양자. 다나양 잠베 왕게 라팅이라 소세 잠베 스톱기나 잠베도 양결되라 연단 줘버려서 양제 그 견 맞고 그 연단 줘데 야사 장주 선반는 게 라는데 선데 미치거라 근데 란지 미치거라 미들라 소세 보고 저는 진짜 배다 가래 거나 건가 제기하러 용 판다는 게 제기하러 이나한테 살라고 배 독자 깡 쳐선 그래서 그래 근데 디자 전에 연락 때 독자에 마사마 콜라 잠바고 말이지 잠바기 검들 라양 등이라 얘네 가르쳐 연단 적으로 그 연단 전이야
거 연대 거 연대 가르쳐
그 연단 적으로 연단 적거래 적바
연대 저거
연단 그 연단 전에 콜라야 디자 대 야사 장주 선방이 라는데 견전 맞아지 연단 적이지 장주 선방 라는데
So then there's a similar verse from Tome Sangbo. Tome and he says that when you have somebody who you treat like your own child, and then they turn around and do something terrible to you, then instead of you don't have any hostility towards them because of this, but you see them as what do you say, helping you to develop good qualities. So then this is the practice of a bodhisattva.
그 연단적으로는 미디어 버려야지. 그 드링아 잡아 거야게 베디 누가 약보지나 돼서. 드링 거에 경상자다. 녀스케는 그 통상 아데스 나랑 스케는 나나 통상. 근데 제가 기가 나지 그 지라도 약보지 두대. 근데 연단적데.
So then when you say you see them as giving good qualities. It's this idea of patience that such a person who you feel so close to, it's treated you so badly, then you think of how wonderful an opportunity that they've given to me. So you think you put them in this positive light. 세제 주부 되게 장 뉴제 장주기 셈 겁내야 배아데 지 자산지 샤다래 저라 아데 덤바데 따데 너르드는 근데 세제 쭉샤여라 거야 너르드는 지샤기 자다되잖아 공도 지가 샤바 남 너르드나자 뭐 삼잖아 맞아 너나 뭐 삼기파이 반대만음 꾸나 불 마이 노던 동하고 상면다가 렘버 쇼 되도아 도르드나 하지가 안다 도르드나 하잖아 무엇이 난다로 도르드나 무엇 삼되나 무엇 내야 무엇 랑랑 무엇 여파 매장 유파에 고나데 나 판도저래 랑 무엇 판도제 무엇 매나 윤이 판도제 하지 저래 무엇 유파에 고나 중얼 길에 판데 말르바 무슨 지어서 판도단 대화 망보지 걸어. 이쪽은 찍냥 말리바 반대 말리바 만남 군람 불러 줘자 파마신 상말 네 쇼되네. 마 반대 수수이 판바단 대화도 기부 열어 판도단 대화가 지금 말리바
na kunla par buljing ze pa ma senjang ngala pu ze da mai kaza mai not dang dungal pu ze ma gar senja sang me gyula yebe gyu no pa dikpa de na no pa san dikpa dang diba dang debu dungal de debu dungal yorwa dungal ganga sangwen monsan thomma sangwen dang le 하마고 아치네야 두데 녜데 지기 말아봤자 상와자되나 몬중만 하마고죠 두데는 거래서
네.
상wen 달라 렘버 쇼즈가 렌트버 쇼즈 말은 거기야 nanzo 전에 나 공격기 나 잠바 공제 나 인제 공제스게로 아 그때 지금 제시간 천디대 와라 천디대 와데 드시좀 봐서 간지 미소야 동남아에는 그 칼라자 차상다야 잉야면도 전시기면도 생겨라 어다데 저도 던지세야 냠는 자데 밀라야 총랑된 총방의 총나 캡다 맞아야지 상화전에 야 저는 야보인 거래
So the next verse is the one that we said was the summary of the previous 6 verses, and it says, in brief, may I offer benefit and joy to all my mothers, both directly and indirectly. May I quietly take upon myself all hurts and pains of my mothers. Here, this idea is that you're either, when you're benefiting others or giving them any kind of joy, then when it says to all my mothers, it's talking to all living beings who are my mothers, then it's you either do it directly or indirectly. That Langritama does it either directly or indirectly, and then he's aspiring to quietly take upon myself all hurts and pains of my mothers. Usually we would proclaim ourselves and be, I'm doing this and I'm helping in this way. But here he's saying to do it sort of so that others don't know. And it reminds me of the story of Shantideva, when he was staying in the monasteries, and he was a great adept, but nobody knew that. To everybody else, he just appeared as somebody who was eating and sleeping and defecating. They had this attitude. He just very quietly went about his very unusual activities.
상호전전 가르쳐 말결경이구나. 말결기한테 제가 매봐서 저는 내가 발자 연구 말이. 상호전에 되전에 발자 연구가 말이. 말결기가 말이.
If you do it quietly, then you don't get any, obstacles. It helps to clear away obstacles, and also you don't have problems with pride.
Okay. 아대기 가자다 거기 탑기 차당 되는 노르드 니가 차. 다마디 개파되기 다디 디시가다 샤르게 차.
Yeah. So then all of those first 6 and then this 7th one that's a summary have to do with method, compassionate technique, and now the 8th one has to do with wisdom.
다들 이도 어떻게 대다 군경 주계기 똑배팀에 마고 마바신세 주군 유만 시벨로 로 제메 칭와라절 쇼즈도 공도샤데 라 그자 라렌다다 악스나 공도샤바 간라디 토르여로 대다 군경데 대다즈네 단다 공도샤바 공도샤바 직접 쭉 샤바 차로 대다 강은 대다 군경데 직전 체계기에서 김에 망고 배쳐버려서 이든 체계 여러 똑배 팀에 망고 봐 직전 체계기 똑배 팀에 망고 마박신데는 망고 봐 지난기 저군 주마 답을 셰벨로 강란 덴브레진 바 매칭사 다들 똑배팀에 막어야지 치단 난기 최여봐 그 남근 뭐 내가 요함을 좀바 규만 안지인데
규만 안지.
규만 안지 규만 답을 셰벨로잖아 삼로 그래 규만 안지는 그 코란 경은 저 주비와 말에 파딱자리데 규만 안지인데 미규랑진데 내 요말에서 코란 요말에서 코란은 수 요말에서 코란은 수 주비와 말에 랑은 주비와 말에 랑진기 주비와 말에 덴발 주비와 말에서 간다 셰스벨로자 안나 덴브레진 바 메팅다 저 랑진이 랑은 맨나고 덴진 연기 말아 덴진 시간 덴바진에 아트는 속더라 덴진 연기 말에서
덴시
덴진 덴바진 바 덴발 미진데 참말 덴발진 찬진지어로 사마게 덴발에서 찬진이 중화지 담자로 아때 참인지 중화들랑
that's so then may the 8th verse reads, may all this remain undefiled by the stains of the 8 mundane concerns, and may I, recognizing all things as illusion, devoid of clinging, be released from bondage. So here, Langri is saying, may all this means everything that I've mentioned before in the previous 7 verses, may all this be undefiled by the stain and never be, infected with the 8 mundane concerns. And may I, recognizing all things as illusion, here, seeing that they are all, may I see everything as like an illusion. Here means that they lack any kind of objective existence or existence from their own side, or true existence or intrinsic existence. They completely lack that. And so then here that they are not at all real or not at all true, then in understanding that, may I be released from the bondage. Because Chingwa may I be released from all bondage into, that means, Shembe Chingwa, it means the bondage of clinging.
I think we finish.
I think maybe we have to finish there.
Yeah, that shows it.
Yeah, I don't know if do we have time for questions? And who's the officiator here?
I think we should have time for questions.
We do have time for questions.
The song Kache Balu Kache Balu.
Kache.
Kache Balu. Kache Balu is Yugu, Geshu Karpo, Rime Gang songs, Yanyu Mombo, Logas of songs, Kache Balu, Namdar Shayers, Nyanang Minion, Sosam Lapters.
Tambero.
Geshu Karpo, Jagal Shu Carpuero, Gesho, Shu Carpuero. She go come Jimu Gang songs. Yugu Jigaro, Yugu the Logas of songs that satisfy them, satisfy. Then what they near Namta de Shayers, Nyan Manuka similar Thursday.
Yeah, right.
They get the shares are time, so they are young just similar.
So this is saying that basically means that if I've taken what's written on the page here, right?
When in Tibet, one of the Panjan Lama, and he said his white paper fill up with these writings. And can satisfy what he's writing here. Then I just wrote here my own what the experience or stories. If you want to listen or not, up to you. Similarly, here we start to talk about the 8 verses. Well, as much as we can, when we talk, and up to you, you want to practice or not.
It's dependent upon your perspective on it, and we satisfied ourselves in trying to explain and explaining these 8 verses.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody?
Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe and Josh. I have 2 questions. I understand there might not be enough time to answer them, but the meaning of directly and indirectly, in short, I will offer to all sentient beings. And if you could say something about the 8 worldly conceptions. I'm using a different translation, but
Meaning of directly?
Yeah, directly and indirect. What is the meaning of directly and indirectly? And then what are the 8, can you say something about the 8 worldly concerns? Yeah, jikten choge.
Jikten kemba nyedam minge dan nyandam minge dedam minge soma jikten choge wadaki yu gomordo gomol ru tesonde jikten kemba den gabol bugero.
Yeah.
Nyepa jungna gabo. Nyepa majuna magawa.
Yeah, right. If you gain and loss, okay. So Nagarjuna said to the king, he said to his disciple who was a king, gain and loss. So those are 2.
2.
Yeah.
Nyambo shari kaja nyambo shari ngabo yare to bucha nyagro.
What is it? Praise and blame. Yeah.
Then tora tanga juna ngabo mara tanga na gotia.
Oh. Nyenda minyan.
Nyambo shana kaja shambo nyambo shana.
Oh yeah, it's something agreeable or something, words that are praise and blame. I think it has to, well, no, it's different. What do you say? Agreeable sound. It's not praise and blame because the next one is praise and blame. What is it?
Fame and disgrace.
Fame and disgrace. Maybe you have to think of it that way.
Jiden kemba nyandam dedam debo juna gabo yari.
Yeah.
Dubu juna.
Pleasure and pain. Yeah.
Then kazada tora tanga junsa.
Yeah, we gave Chungsa.
Jiden kemba nyandam dedam toma chiki jiden chodeza. Jiden kemba nyandam nyandam dedam mede toma chebe.
Deba.
Stopatane gabo maratane gabo mebe.
Yeah, don't be impartial towards these. Not to be, what do you say? To like some of them or dislike the others. So it's gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame, disgrace, praise and blame.
Most of the someone down the limit of the order. Don't know most of you by Pandeman Kulamada. Pande, most of them, most of them do the attire. Still, there was to put the chick most of the time. Most of the time, Matuna, most of you buy it. So, I had to give me a jandale. Chimbata is done. So, Chimbata and Chimbatangi is. So, the time and a Jan Guinea, Chimbatan Chipale. Most of Guinea.
Yes, so benefiting others either directly or indirectly is referring to, like, if directly means that you could, for instance, if you're practicing generosity, you give something directly to somebody, hand it over to them directly. If you're doing it indirectly, then you give it to somebody else to give to them, like that.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I can interview. Thank you very much for your interesting talk.
Yeah. Thank you.
One question. Where is the border of compassion? When you are
As I listen,
Did you, or maybe I have to repeat it for the camera, but just the idea is, what's the limit of compassion? And maybe if somebody's going to kill me, I don't really want to be killed. So where does the compassion sort of end?
then compassion made in that. They kill the Jane. They come that day.
Khen has a passage in here.
What's that? Kanza. And the good
What,
compassion, yeah.
yeah, compassion. What is the limit of compassion? Maybe the cham meba yorbe did cham yuba did michi rang la sena then it say sena.
Now you don't have him, as I told the story, you know, one person want to go to practice a patient in very terrible places. The other person, you cannot practice that. The people are very nasty, going to torture you. Then he said, I'm going to go back. If the people bother me, I will think, wonderful person, only bother me, not just torture me. If they torture me, then, oh, kind, these people are very kind, only torture not very badly. If they badly torture, then how can they only torture me badly, not got killed? If they kill me, then I'll think, wonderful person, they only kill me, detention me in Lordians. They don't have, no? So the compassion, if you have, rangi chizun gupa kun you go, manam chizun yandang kun yizhe. What is that in the fourth Panjalama? Yeah. Self cherishing, we get, no? The one of the Kadam Balama say, drink shina sangi ya doya yin se. Honda shina joga ya doya yin se. The other Susu ya nyamni juni, yan la tewa ninja gom teacher, ninja la tayo mara, ninja tayo mara. Kush says under the Jata the Dardin de Roy. Nas going Shukchimo Sanko Yongyo mara. Na Shukchimena, and the Pena did what Jusamazuya, Sosia, Lakba Jimbata, Kamba Jimbago, Go Jimbata, Ganga. Gom son at the that the gom got it. Magum the day jam. And then Limsan Tanga Yamaris. Limsan, and they are gom to choose. Kania, chick the head, and then the Sams and some rather. Then Sams and chick was Nita Dansona, Limsan ya Dangbuti, Limsan Kola ya pine Tatanga. Kaleka, Quaver Nita Dansona ya Sopagon. And Kaleka Koya Chupagas and a cook of Magavdi. Kaleka Cotonsona. Jetagi Tipa Mazati. Kale Kaleta Kotonsana wasn't the game. Karela name, the Nanjin, the Taxa Nanjin. Who took their Gumgar, is it?
So then, really, compassion has no limit, but the Bodhisattva. Therefore, you can. See this in the example of the bodhisattvas when they give away their limbs and their lives and so forth. These extraordinary activities that a bodhisattva has. But this doesn't come about through just instantly wanting to do like that. You have to accustom yourself to this kind of compassion. So then when you're if somebody is saying something harsh to you or physically harming you, then usually we're going to react and return something, a harsh word or a physical, beating something. But if gradually, if we can make it so that we don't retaliate, and over time we get accustomed to not retaliating with any harm, then then gradually, in this kind of way, we develop this kind of compassion.
그래서 곰 날라올 미교도 어떻게 가는 연만처럼.
Yeah, Shanti Deva said that when you really that by getting used to something or becoming acquainted with something or or familiarizing ourselves with something, there's nothing that we can't really achieve. There's no, that kind of transformation that we can't achieve.
갈래갈래 곰바처럼 곰성네. 그럼 거기 샤자즈 세선에 토마토 바나지는 또요 말이지. 토마토 바나지.
So then
곰바 장주 선바 야사 톰보여로. 그래서 강발라바 짐바 땅도 선바 먼저 야 토마토 바나지만 또 찍어요 말이지.
So then
곰나 되는 찍어요.
the compassion then is something that through familiarizing ourselves with it, then we can reach to these unusual activities of the bodhisattva. Like before the Buddha became a Buddha, he had these lives as a bodhisattva, and in that capacity, he would give away his own limbs as if just in the same way that we would give away some kind of piece of vegetable. And that kind of activity that a bodhisattva has.
나그나 아마 있네. 부구여로. 부구에 셈만 되지. 나서 숙지 뭐였지? 아마랑이 따당서네. 아마 그때 지금 콜라야 듣고 지금 단단하게 닝지야 숙지를 그러. 닝지 코타페 셈만 되지. 나사가 맞아 봐도 닝지 때 숙지를 주거든.
네.
잠깐이 따당겨라. 따당하는 그 검산데. 그게 네 부구에 산도 산로도 숙지 뭐였어? 그 녀다단 녀다인 뭐 하고 이게 말이야.
네.
단단 부대야 something 겁나는 지겨 알았어.
It's similar for like an attitude that we have towards our children. When a child is sick, then the mother
mentally disturbed. Or mentally disturbed. Mentally disturbed. Child.
Mentally disturbed.
Oh, mentally disturbed.
Both.
Yeah, mentally disturbed, physically or mentally, physically sick, mentally disturbed. Then they don't have any kind of feeling of at that time to if they do something to the mother, they're not going to. When the child hits the mother instead of reacting with anger, reacts with more compassion for their child. So it's that's kind of attitude that is what do you say, emulated. Yeah. Yeah, so that instead, when we then cultivate compassion and that and become accustomed to compassion, then we won't. Then when somebody beats us, then we have more compassion for them.
Yeah.
I want to address the issue of unlimited compassion. It's going against what's been discussed here. If someone's coming at me to harm me physically or monetarily or any other way, and this person is very strong, to have unlimited compassion for this person is setting him on the wrong path, at least in my mind. It's not allowing him to understand what he's doing is wrong. And compassion for self, not having compassion for self, which is allowing the other person to constantly abuse you, is the worst type of abuse. You're abusing yourself by allowing this person and not letting this other person know your own self-worth. I happen to admire a woman in history, Eleanor Roosevelt. Whenever she heard uttering racist remarks, abusing, slandering other people, she would stand up, face that person, and tell that person in no uncertain terms that what he was doing was unacceptable. And that's what I admire.
If we, to be compassion,
Yeah.
don't depend, then giving that habit the person.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the you know. Compassion nga de nyingje gombe zoba gomge de 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 gyo mare. Tap시 쪽으로다. tap시 koya ko nyata tangmo jo koya da de ma nyingje nanglo la ja. Zupe ya di Geshe ya dang de ya tap시 쪽으로다. tap시 전에 제가 tap시 짜는 다들 얘기 되부래서 솔랭게래서 뭐좀 봐도 거야 뒤쪽으로서 답지
답시.
거기 녀다 다야다 사야 당이다 다요 녀다 당 뭐주야 가자 잠보세 야 대타 가자 샴보 있잖아 용사마레잖아 탑야 간데서 치러라 저서도 단이야 저거서 되는 거야 nga phele de ge ta ta gare nya ta tang du sam nga ya gen phi go dan la ne nga gi gung da la de ge ge gung da ti le nga go dan la ge yen la pa di lo se lam sam go chen ya ma do ja ge yan ji nya ta tang ge wa yan gi gung yan go dan de nga gi gung da de gen du de ya ji jang nga gi gung chong ba de o da du de ya ta chi ka 그것도 답시 쪽으로 해서 그래서 거양 때문에 거를 누르죠. 네. 거를 로봇이야만 거를 누르죠. 거기 거를 디바지용으로 와. 그래서 거 사비 디바지용으로 와. 저한테 양 사면 또지. 문제디 스페지가래. 장군 마도 라망 마시즈 누구 마시즈 간지. 장군 니까요. 장군요 와.
장군 the key to wolf.
어때 맞다가지 거트고도 겨러 봐. 그거 맞다가 지나서 봐야 돼. 야 라마단 누구 열어 봐. 누구 보고. 그거 맞지죠. 시 장기 그 소사자는 누구 시도 열어 봐. 네. 누구 심고 장기형 딱 먹고 지 답시 잡아야 돼. 어때는 잡아야 돼.
So this is where skillful means or skillful method comes into play. It's a misunderstanding of being compassionate to think that you don't do anything, that you just sort of stay there being patient and compassionate. That's not what's being said. The idea is once you're inside, you're maintaining an attitude of compassion for this person. Outside, then you have to decide what is the appropriate thing to be done. It depends upon the situation. There's different, certainly it might take a strong, you might have to do something very strongly in return for being beaten. But the danger is that if you do something that can be perceived as retaliation, that'll just make the situation worse. So then I can think of when I was in Tibet and my teacher, he was getting ready to beat me, for instance. The best thing to do, I was looking that there was an open window there, and so I.
If teacher next to the window, I start to stay next to the door. Yes, next to the door, I start. And you go like that, just open door, run away.
It's either out through the window or out through the door. So you have to use what's known as tapshi means skillful means using your intelligence. But inside you keep an attitude of compassion, not anger, hatred, hostility.
That person could in nyomung ziriyor.
Yeah, because that person is
That's
under
what
the
you
influence of
did,
their
Koshkun Mares,
yeah,
Nyumungi,
they're under the influence of what do you say, destructive emotion. And it's not, they're not doing it, it's really the destructive emotion that's doing it. That work out okay for you?
Yes.
If you're not satisfied, make it shorter, the question short.
Other questions? I have just one question.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering if you could give us any advice, because about listening to the news. Because to be good citizens, we expect that we should stay informed. And we're hearing a lot these days about news that's fake, news that's true. People get their news from people that only agree with what they agree with anyway. And it seems like anytime I make an effort to listen to the news in my day, I find myself, my own mind, getting angry or discouraged or frustrated or feeling like I need to do something. And I feel like that's an opportunity right there for me to watch my mind and maybe do something with practice. And I don't really know where to start with that without getting discouraged or frustrated.
News like you know, the news carry,
And I'll have to say that
yeah.
I have to stay informed because even my own family or my own friends could be affected by what happens in the news. You know, it could be a matter of, depending on what's decided on any given day, I might not be able to take somebody home from the airport.
Quick way this and Joshua, I will speak my broken English, then you fix it, that right? Okay? It seemed to me, first of all, I don't watch news, I don't read newspaper, but I heard from others problem that then they say if you get upset, if you get really angry, it's not going to help you, it's not going to help the other, it's not going to contrary the people. But you stay calm like an ocean. In the ocean, everyone use the boat, all come. The Kirzi river comes noisy, muddy, but yet the ocean is come calm, nothing. This will stay calm. Then your mind have more, more open, more, otherwise your mind is really closed, tight. You cannot think carefully. But stay calm, look the situation. If anger, what is your anger? If your anger is helpful yourself or not? Is helpful for other or not? Of course, them both. Not your anger takes away your own peace away. Your anger causes problems others, so they usually stay calm. Then you try to write in a letter or whatever you plan with love, with compassion, with understanding that the problem of the world is not only just the world problem. This samsara we call it, cyclic existence, that problem. So then, if you're calm, then you write a letter. For instance, let's say I don't know who you're talking about. Let the president, you can criticizing, and your anger, he doesn't know you get angry or not. You're not noticing. But you criticizing is not going to get there. But you do stay calm and write the letter. You are a senator, or especially the Society of Republican group. This is happening, there's an example, you know? This one happening, please, you know, this is the way, this is such a, we cannot now, as before, the world is at earlier, it was too big. Now world become small, that's science technologies. So we have to learn without causing each other a problem, how to live with peace, love, compassion, support each other. No? That way you can write, then you can have chances to, at least you can change 4 people, 5 people mind can change. That's good enough. You cannot change that. Therefore, Shanti Deva said, no? Don't try to cover world with leather. You know, don't have enough leather. Just try to change your own, you know, have nice shoes. You could cover the world. Don't try to change the world, try to change inner world. For instance, like in our case. Dalai Lama not try to change this Chinese Communist government. He changed himself. He never ever get angry. Instead get angry, he get more compassion toward them. More concerned, how can I bring peace in China, in the world? That way, it's open for him. He become a world peacemaker, leader. So that's where you learn. Of course, the problem with ourselves, no? In 2 arms, have one hand working, one hand doesn't working. Of course, that you have to need support even that doesn't work. For instance, this one need to hold this one. Then this one can use that. So together, good thing is I told earlier, those who really, those who giving get opportunity to practice your patience. They're also given the opportunity, the nature of the samsara. Until you are not free from the suffering and cyclic existence, you always have the problems. Look back to the history. Since beginning, not these days, even before Buddha, after Buddha, you know what happened in India. Now, Ashoka. Many, you know, there's problem always there. Then in Tibet happened many times. No? So that's the nature of the samsara. Really, this gives for us more opportunity to speed up our own practice. If you get angry, sometimes I told if you, let's say, get angry with the president, you have to suffer 4 years. Right? He's going to do whatever you want to do there, no? But don't let yourself suffer. If you're able to support, not able to support, just stay calm, do what you want to do. Therefore, you say in Buddhist teachings, if you try to save the world, the beings alive, try to help. If not able to do, stop harming others. Right?
Do what you can to help, and at least don't harm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think we're at the end.
Geshe is my first translator in New Jersey. And after lunch, he can teach me. I don't speak it all. He get boring. 5 minutes, he read, then he goes.
Not a very good teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you to Khen and the translator.
Thank you, Joshua.
Really for coming in and doing this.
Yeah, Joshua Color, their center give me opportunities to do all this work. Thank you.
Thank you.